what we did. That's right. That's what we did. Okay, we're going to do the learning sponsors, gentlemen. Okay. Year of learning, Martin Lipman and family in memory of his mother, of his wife, Malka Chana Bat Pinchas. Friends of Herb Jeremiah, Tzvi Ben Zev, friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel Ben Yaakov. Friends of Gideon Lazinski, Mordechai Shlomo Ben Meir. Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, Eliel Ben Yosef Cohen. Those who were inspired by our Rebbetzin Emerita, Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Esther Makabat, Meshulam Yisachar. Gail and Leslie Kaplan in memory of their parents, Mushka Sprinza Bat Yosef Chaim V'Chava, Hanan Ben Moshe Eliezer V'Chana, Chesha Bat Shmuel Yitzchak Halevi V'Tzipora, Yisra Ben Yoel Moshe Cohen V'Chana. Rexford Friends of Gladys Sherman, Gutta Bud Mayer. Michael Klein and Friends of Judah Klein, Yehuda Tzvi Ben Chaim. Marsha Brana in memory of her husband, Arav Yerachmiel Ben Shmuel. Friends and family of Arthur Ritholtz, Mordechai Yudel Ben Baruch Leib HaKohen. Friends and family of Siggy Bessler, Shalom Shraga Ben Dov. Friends of Marvin Weinstein, Mordechai Ozer Ben Yisrael Aharon. A month of learning by B. Pizer in memory of her sister Rivka Bat Avram Michal Halevi. Michael and Judith Poretsky in memory of his brother, Avram Ben Gershon, Haran and Mel Haller, memory of her mother, Malka Rachel Bat Yehuda Leib. A week of learning by Barbara Stern in memory of her father, David Matka Ben Tzvi Yetta, Manny and Carol Miller, in memory of his father, Tzvi Hirsch Ben Menachem Mendel. Today being the 26th of December, Leona and Walter Friedrichs have a day of learning in memory of her mother, Miyasha Bat Moshe. And Hashem is having a Leah, Kant Rafia, Veldi Yashir Shematzliah, Chol B'nai Yisrael, a good convention.
So both sides. Today, I want to tell you when I was much younger than now, not 20, I was 21 already. When I was 21, I was really 21. So I met a young guy, young Sephardic guy. He was about to take the exam in Eretz Yisrael to be for Dayanos, to become a judge. So in those days, they were hardworking guys. The exam would go for hours and hours and hours, and you were allowed to bring all the books you wanted. You could bring any book you wanted. They didn't care. You couldn't cheat, so that explain everything. So the guy is telling me that he's preparing for the exam, and he's almost crying to me. I was a kid. He's like a young man. He's looking at me. He says, Choshen Mishpat. If you look, Choshen Mishpat, it's a very big book. It's you'll see the commentaries on Choshen Mishpat, the Shulchan Aruch monetary law. Most of our famous commentaries don't make it to the end. It's just too long. The end is very hard. There's almost very few commentaries because they run out of steam, to get there. In any case, he says to me, trying to explain to me how difficult. He says, look, just forget about studying and preparing and analyzing. He says, just to read the words over a few times before I go for the exam. The book is so big just to read through it. So today's a very big daf. It's a gigantic page. I'm going to have to push through. And the truth is that there's room to talk here for days about this particular blood. Yeah, for days. So we have to push through everything. So you'll pardon me, but I'm going to try and explain it as nicely as Hashem will help me. Okay, now. So we are at the bottom of Nun Gimel Amud Beis. Okay, at the two dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the bottom, Nafal Atoka. Okay, and we're going to work on a lot of derivation today. Okay, Nafal Atoka Shor B'Kela B'Nishtab. But we said if an ox and its utensils fell in and they broke, okay, so you have to pay, etc., or a donkey and its utensils and they tore, so you have to pay for the owner of the pit has to pay for the animal, but he's exempt on the utensils, chulu, etc. Masnisin de Loka Yehuda. Our Mishnah, which has been our assumption so far, most of the time, is what that owner of a pit is exempt for damage done to utensils, and that Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Why? The Tanya Yehuda holds it's not true. Rabbi Yehuda Mechayev al Niske Kalim Bebar. Yehuda says the exemption that the rabbis find for utensils is not true. Yehuda holds also that the owner of the pit has to pay for damage to utensils. Now let's analyze that argument. My time at the Rabbanon. What's the reasoning of the rabbis that you're exempt for the owner of the pit is exempt on damage done to utensils? The Markalkas, the pasuk says, "V'nafal shama shara chamor." Here, if an ox or a donkey will fall in. Now you realize again, we analyze every word. You don't have to say ox or donkey. You say hanofel, something falls in. You keep all nofel, like by makkah, like by the parapet move. When something will fall in, when it'll fall in, you'll have to pay. Okay, so why do you have to say ox or donkey? Okay, so you have to say what? Shor below Adam. So ox is coming to say dafka an ox and not what? Not a man. You're not responsible if a man dies. And chamor below kalim, and also what? A donkey. And similarly, not other things that die, for example, like utensils whose breaking is their death. You're not responsible for the breaking of kalim or for the death of man. Rabbi Yehuda. So has Rabbi Yehuda, since we said the extra word shor and chamor, one of them is going to come to exclude obligation for what? For utensils. And that's where Yehuda heard that you are obligated for utensils. But he says, it says shor o chamor. That's a big extra word. The o, what do you need that for? The rabos esakalim. The word o is coming to amplify and to what? To come to be inclusive and to say what? That even utensils, which are not quite, it's not quite dying in the same way as animal, it's also included in the exemption. Pardon me. I said the other way. It's also even just like things that die are included. Also, what things that break are also included, even though they're not exactly the same. So 1 second. Since Rabbi Yehuda used the extra word "oh," so what do the rabbis do with the extra word "oh"? You explain Rabbi Yehuda. How do you explain the rabbi? He says, don't worry. He said, no. "Oh" is not there to be extra to include the obligation for utensils. It's there. Tell me that I don't need it. Since you told me shor and chamor, I would think, well, when are you obligated? Only if an ox and a donkey fall in, then you have to pay. But if an ox or a donkey falls in individually, you don't have to pay. So I need the O to say what? No, either or, either one, not both of them. You're obligated even if it's only an ox or only a donkey. But very nice. But now you answer the rabbi so nicely, Rabbi Yehuda. What are you going to do with Rabbi Yehuda? How does he know? So how does he know how to that you only maybe he's stuck now and you're only obligated if it's a donkey and an ox? And it says Rabbi Yehuda lechalik mibenofel nafka here, because since there were two nouns, an ox and a donkey, but the verb was in the singular nafal in Hebrew. That means you have a singular verb and a plural verb, nafal singular. So I don't need the word o to separate, because since you use the singular verb, it's got to mean either one. Because it can't, because otherwise it should say v'naflu if it was both of them. The rabbis also know grammar. So how come the rabbis don't learn from the singular verb that it's one or the other and not both? The answer is v'nafal too much, because it's not true. Because we have examples throughout the Torah that v'nafal can be used, even though it's singular, it could still refer to a multiple verb. Rashi gives a few examples. For example, it says the asa b'tzala waliyav. It's a b'tzala waliyav did, but use the word asa singular did. Or, for example, the sign of the wonder will come. It's two objects of the verb, and still what? Uva, it says it comes in the singular. Also, ba'arim is in Sefer Shmuel. The lion and the bear are coming, and va, and it's still what? It's a singular verb. So we see that the singular verb can also work for plural. So therefore, the rabbis say, they're not convinced that will solve the problem. Okay, good. So now, huh? No, vav alone is not. Vav alone is not enough. Vav is what's the trouble? Because no, but no. Oh, it's not. It's not a vav. It's o. It's not.
Go further. It says it there, right? Also, but so right away you know it's two.
Yeah, okay, but still, but the point is still showing you that the singular verb works for two. That's the point. That's the main point. You show so therefore you can't tell me that singular verb definitely means one or the other. Could mean both. It's still the same thing. Okay. Now get ready. We're going to look for the following thing. Now we're in trouble. We learned we know that an ox, a donkey. How am I going to know all kinds of creatures, including birds? Yeah, camels, right? Am I know all kinds of creatures? How am I going to know all kinds of creatures up till even birds and all kinds of things? Now we're going to start out. So we're going to look for three. We have three different proposals. The last one will work under protest. The first two will reject, and the last two will accept under protest, but we'll get there. Okay, so where's the source? I don't know everything. So let me start out. We have a rule. Let's just remind ourselves. What's the rule? If I have a generalization called a klal, follow. Okay, so if a generalization, you generalize. We include all kinds of things. If the generalization is followed by particulars, then I have to say what the Torah is telling me. I introduce with a colon, then everything on the list is in the detail. So if I have a klal uprat, if it's followed by what? If it's followed by a detail, then I meant to say I open up generally, but I mean only what? Only what's in the detail. That's klal uprat. If I generalize and say a detail, then the rule is whatever's the detail, and that's all. But if I have klal uprat uklal, if I have a generalization followed by a detail, followed by a generalization, then I turn the detail into a paradigm. That's the telling you what I take the detail and say everything like the detail is included. So now I generalize the detail, and that's the rule. So now we're going to try and find a way to include all the other animals, including birds. Amo, let's say like this, the nafal klal. What it says by the case of a pit, an animal fell in. That's a generalization. When something falls in, you got to pay. Shor b'chamor. Then when it's specified, it gave a detail of an ox or a donkey, an ox or a donkey prat. That's a detail. Klal prat. So I would say what if a generalization followed by a detail. Prat. So then only thing in the rule is what is the detail. So it's only a donkey. It's only a donkey or an ox, and that's it. Shor b'chamorin. So it's only those two. Those ones, yes, midechina. Anything else? No. So how do I know other animals? Okay, are going to be included. The answer is what? Amri. So they said what? Bala bar Yishalim. When the pasuk continues, it says that the owner of the pit shall pay. It's not specified. So that's also a type of generalization. Cause of a call. So return. So now I had a klal and a generalization, a prat and a klal. Klal, prat, klal. If I have the klal, prat, klal, yeah, done allocate a prat. So now the rule is what? I make a generalization out of the detail. So therefore what? So how do I do that? How do I generalize? How do I make a paradigm out of the detail? So since I can see that the detail that was specified by the Torah is obviously, what do I find? They're living things. Okay, therefore all living things, and I'm in. I did it. Listen, 1 second. He says, if you're going to tell me you're going to learn it that way, who said that you should generalize the detail the way you did? Or how do you know that you should abstract? I would rather say, how do you know you can abstract the detail the way you did it? He said, oh, these are living things, those are living things. There's lots of ways to look at it, a lot of ways to skin that cat. Here, he says, we know that animals, whether it's an unclean animal or a clean animal, okay, or a clean animal that wasn't shechted and died, they're called what? Nevela. And a nevela is metame, a person, whether they touch it, whether they carry it, or even if they move it without, if they carry it without moving, even if they move it without touching it, they are obligated. Now, when it comes to birds, whether they're unkosher birds or whether they're kosher birds, unkosher birds are not a nevela at all. They're not unclean at all, unlike animals. And even a kosher bird, its dead, its corpse is not really the same rule. The only thing, it's corpse. If you'll eat it, when you actually swallow it, that'll make you tummy. You know what I'm saying? Nivle tar. So by birds, but by birds, there's no tumor of touching and carrying. So the whole thing is out. So how do I know to include all these things? So maybe the point is what? Any place with an nevela will matame b'maga masa by touching and by carrying. Of course, so the rule is what? It's only things where the corpse will matame a person, avalofus, but that'll come to what? Birds, like I just told you. Hello? Birds will be excluded. So how do I know birds are included in what you have to pay for? In Caney says, no, if that were true, if it was coming to say what? Things that become the things that are matame b'maga masa, nichtav rachban echad prata. It only had to tell me one of the two. What? An ox or a donkey, okay? But why do you have to write two? So the fact that it write two tells me that it's not coming to make that rule. One of them is telling me what? One of them tells me all living things, okay? And one of them tells me what? One tells me what? Living things that are the same, that they are matame. And the second one, why is it there? The second one is to tell me what? Even things that are not like it, even living things that are not matame. So the fact that had it had one detail, you'd be right. I could limit it to that to that abstraction. But since I had two, one of them tells me living things like this, and the other one tells me even living things that are not quite like it, they're not matame in the same way. Therefore, I include birds. We're in business. I said, one second. You're telling me that it's extra, that you could have written shor or chamor if you wanted to exclude birds, and therefore, since it wrote both, it included birds. Well, come on, get out of here. Which one could you have written by yourself? You're wrong. We needed both. There's no extra one here. There's no extra one here for you to say that we included living things, that include even living things that are a little different, that are not matame. Why? He says, which one do you think you could have written by itself? Ekos of shor, you think you could have written shor by itself? have Amina carved mizbeach, and I would have made a rule like this: things that can be brought into the mizbeach, like an ox, and things that can't be brought into the mizbeach, like what, like a donkey, which it didn't say, you wouldn't have to pay for. I need the right donkey. Because of Rahman Chamor, had you wrote the donkey, I would have said, oh, make a rule out of that. Okay, what is that? Kaddish b'bechora. Even though usually kosher animals are the ones that become a bechor. There's one that becomes a bechor. What a donkey, a firstborn donkey also becomes a firstborn. Even though you have to redeem it, but that's not the point. But it also becomes a donkey. It's in. So I think from donkey, I think all things that can become a firstborn b'bechora. Okay, ain't kaddish in. Kaddish b'chara in things that can become sanctified by firstborn, yes. Ain't kaddish b'chara low, but things not like birds, okay, and like birds, etc. I think enough to pay. So therefore, the Torah wrote me. Listen, first you wrote shore, and that includes what I know: horses, and I know camels. Okay, and I have to write chamor also. What to tell me that even things that are not on the mizbeach, okay, are also holy, and that I may be only, so therefore what? So I have to say what? It's only things like shrav chamor, like we said originally. There's no extra stuff over here. Birds are out. Birds are out, buddy. They're birds out, and therefore what? Only things that are like shrav chamor, that they become tamei b'masoma. So how do I know? Maybe it's only ones that are matami b'magoma, some that are matami by touching, etc. And not, how do I know? How do I know birds? So at that point, we're out. We lost. We're stuck. There's no extra word here to get birds in. We're out. Okay, good. West says, okay, drop that theory. Ella. Okay, let's try again. This is the second attempt to include everything, including birds. Okay, Ella. Omar, while the pasuk said, "V'amesi alo," this we're familiar with. The end of the pasuk by the bor says what, that the corpse is going to be here. What does that mean? The person, the nizak, the damagee, is responsible for the corpse. If he doesn't sell it on time, the owner, the damager only owes him, if it was worth 100 and the corpse is worth 10, the damager owes him only 90, and he better sell the 10 before it rots, otherwise he loses the $10. It's his responsibility. But what's the main point of ourselves? That's what we usually learn. Okay, but we learn from the fact that it says what? Hames, the dead one. Okay, so it tells me what? Kol davar misa. Here, hames, the mace, tells me what? Anything that dies. So therefore, anything that dies, it's a rule, it's a generalization. Anything that dies, you got to pay for. So fantastic. It's forget any living thing that fell in that's capable of dying. You got to pay for. No problem. Okay. Huh? But yeah, not kidding. That we're going to come to now. Get ready. Now, so very nice. So now you said what? Anything that dies, you pay for it. So I said, oh, so yeah, fast. So we solved at first glance, we solved our problem. Now we got everything, all the animals, the birds, anything that can die, you're fine. This is 1 second. Bain the Rabbana did come in mind to look at it. 1 second. Let's remember whether we follow the rabbis who use the word chamor to exclude utensils, and which means they needed to exclude utensils. Ubein Rabbi Yehuda come Rabbi Yehuda that what, who says that utensils are included. Kalim b'nei misa ninu. He says are utensils things that can die? So why did you said things that die? How could why would the rabbis need to exclude utensils? They don't die. You don't need to exclude them. Why do you need to exclude them? And Rabbi Yehuda, who brought them in, how can he? Hey, they don't die. How could you exclude them? You told me things that die. These things don't die. Ami, they said, and this is a concept we've been using. What Shirasan, who it's not true. We look at utensils that what, and when they break, that is their death. So really, what death? If you have to read the word death, so to speak, a type of annihilation or erasure. You said so. Death. These things also things can be obliterated, and therefore you might have included or might not have included. And we explain ourselves. 1 second. So slow down. Still, you want to tell me you're going to learn all living things? Anything that could die is included. All the animals up to birds. All right, 1 second. Okay, according to Rav, the only damage you're responsible for a bar has to come from bad air. He says below the chavato, and you're not responsible for the bang, like because the bang was there. The bang was there, part of the public domain. It was there anyway. Bain the rabbanon, okay, and Bain number one, okay, and whether you hold the rabbis or whether Yehuda who either need to or don't include Kalim, but they even have to discuss it. Kalim b'nei havla ninu. What are you talking about? Since when, if you hold it, when does bad air affect utensils? What are you talking about? What does bad have to do with utensils? Okay, what does it have to do with anything? Amri, so they said, you know what? And this is a very limited drasha. We don't follow this way then. It's right. New utensils, new clay utensils. Somehow the bad air causes them to bust. Yeah, it causes them to break. Okay, the mifkai mahavla, they break open, they explode. Yeah, they shatter from the bad air.
Fumes.
Okay, yeah, and the fumes, yeah, they shatter. Aye, but that's going to be very limited. Yeah, very limited utensils. Yeah.
Why don't we include plant life? Let's say someone has a geranium, and he kills it by throwing it into a pit.
So we don't see. I don't know how we include it. We either have living. We either have a thing that lives and dies. That no. I don't think that. I don't. At the moment, I'm going to say no until we prove otherwise. But usually, the word mace is talking about what we call living biologically. I don't know what the right word is. Zoologically living things, not zoological as opposed to botanical. Okay, but you're right. Good point. In our language, yes, but I think in the Torah's language, no. But if I'm wrong, we'll correct it.
A plant can't fall in by itself.
Yeah, also plants not walking around.
The animal comes.
No, but what if the animal's carrying? What about that? Is it a keli? What is okay? It's a good thought. But I think in our language, you say no. So that's what I just no. I said quietly when you weren't looking. I said that we have to decide if it's kalim or not. So we'll have to talk about it. And the I'm just saying. I'm just entertaining the point. Okay, now. Okay, so now what? So he said what? So since we say okay, they break. Now says the Gemara. Good point. Okay, now says the Gemara. Okay, so 1 second. Okay, so now we're in good shape. We have this generalization. What anything that dies is eligible to the liability of a pit. The Gemara says 1 second. That word is not extra. It's already been used. That phrase was already used to teach us something. Like we learned by Rava. We said what? Let's say an animal that was dedicated to the temple and got a blemish, and the owner redeemed it. He's now allowed to eat it. He's not allowed to eat it. So he's now allowed to eat it. He's now allowed to eat it. So we said shenaf labor. So really, you think what? It's not considered a sanctified. Nevertheless, but it fell into the pit and it died. Potter, he's telling anyway what that you don't pay. For example, why? Should never because it says that the corpse has to belong to what? To the owner of the animal. Now, 1 second. See, when is it true? Even a thing that was redeemed, he's allowed to eat it. But if he doesn't shecht it and it dies, he's not allowed to get benefited from it anymore. So it's the corpse is not his. Ironically, so therefore what? So he learns, but Misha Meshalo, you only pay a guy when the corpse could be his. To the exclusion of this animal that was disqualified and redeemed, where it's only his to shecht and eat the meat, but it's not his. If he doesn't shecht it, then the corpse is not there for him to benefit from. So therefore, what? We already used that phrase that you want to use a generalization to say what? Anything that can die, you're obligated for. Sorry, buddy, it's occupied. We already used it. It's not available to you to make the drasha. Okay, so that was attempt number 2. Goodbye, Charlie. We're out. Starting over again. Okay, that was attempt number 2. We're still stuck. How do we know you have to pay for all kinds of living things, including birds, in a pit? Ella, you're forced to say, but rather, Amar Kral the pasuk said this: Kesef Yashiv Labala. He has to return money to the owners. A lot of extra stuff there. The rabbis, what do you mean? Okay, what do you mean to his owners? The rabbis called this the Balim. So tell you what, you pay anything that has an owner, you have to pay for. That's gonna be fantastic. That'll include all kinds of animals and camels and camels and everything. Whatever you want. 1 second. If anything that can be owned, 1 second. Now we went overboard. Okay, now you got all the birds. 1 second. I feel okay about them. We all know. 1 second. Even utensils and even humans, even slaves. Even slaves. We know we don't pay when the slave dies. Okay, they have owners. Okay, Nami. Even utensils, even slaves, and you have to pay it. It's not true. We don't pay for the utensils of slaves. Amar Cross says, don't worry. He says, sure, below. Don't worry. We already have that drasha. An ox and not a man. Chamor below kalim and a donkey and not kalim. So we don't worry. We're fine. We excluded those things. No problem. I says 1 second. Slow down. Rabbi Yehuda, the Kamar below came. 1 second. We still have Rabbi Yehuda, the unique system that what Rabbi Yehuda you have to pay. Bishlama shor. Okay, now we're happy with the drush we made up today. We've solved everything but one thing. According to Yehuda, okay, shor, the extra word shor is there to exclude a human. Ella chamor. But what is the donkey doing there? My mind, but what's it for? You can't say it's excluding utensils because he included utensil with the word oh. So Rava says, you know what? You got me. And there's two cases what we can't answer. Over here in another place. Chamor debor. The fact that the Torah added the word chamor by a bor in our case, by lost object, lists all kinds of things you have to return. And over there in that Gemara, we justify every detail that it says, but we couldn't justify what? We couldn't justify sheep. He says, so the donkey here and the sheep by lost object, the sheep, the donkey over here according to Yehuda, and the sheep over there according to all opinions. Okay, Kasha, that's a difficulty. But it looks like, but the Gemara looks like, okay, I got a problem, but this is the drasha that the Gemara is sticking with at the moment. That's what you'll see in a moment. As you'll see in a moment. Yeah, and you'll see in a minute. You're gonna see in 1 minute. We're gonna reference this. You can see that we accepted it. We accepted it in a minute. Okay.
Kashmir has an answer.
Huh?
She has to.
That's right. Yeah, I told you, Akasha in general, you should know, Akashas are not the worst. Akasha is not the worst problem. Exactly. I'll tell you, I when I was a kid, a little kid. Somebody said, when you grow up. So I always thought to myself, I figure one day I'm going to grow up. I don't know, is my skin color going to change? Am I going to be a different something? Something unique's going to happen. I can't wait till the day I grow up. I'm going to see. But I look different. Yeah, what is it? What's going to be growing up? So finally, when I grew up, I did realize what it was. What is it? When you're a kid, problems have solutions that are 100%. When you're a kid, there's a problem, and then it's all better. Everything's completely solved. It's all kids. Everything's better 100%. When you grow up, you realize that's right. You solve problems, but even when you solve problems, there's loose ends. Not everything works out. It's a thing. That's when you grow up. That's when you realize. That's why it takes a grown up. That's why it takes a grown up to make decisions, because the children can't, because everything has to be 100%. They can't do it. You need a grown up to understand that's right. We're going to solve the problem, but you're going to have some rough edges over here, some loose ends. That's how Hashem made the world. That's why the Torah starts with bays. You understand? We don't have, only God is one. Our world is always full of conflict and paradoxes and the difficulties. We don't live that way. We live with difficulties. How do we accept the Torah? Here, every nation in the world didn't want to accept the Torah. Why? Because they couldn't live with it, and they were right. What would happen? And what happened to the Jewish people when it came to Hashem? We didn't ask. What would have happened if we asked? So listen to this. So the famous Rav Yitzchak Blaser, one of my heroes, he says, if we would have asked, we wouldn't have had the merit to get it. But my hero, you know what he said? He said, if we would have asked, we also would have rejected. We also wouldn't have taken it. Why? Because nobody can make it. Nobody in the world looks at the Torah and doesn't find he's in conflict. You're going to be in conflict with something. There's something about the Torah that's not going to work for you. Believe me, whatever it is. You want to eat plaster, you want to eat pigs, who knows what it's not going to work. Something's going to happen. So the answer is what? Grown up people understand that's right. When you're in love and you care about God, that's right. It's not going to be 100%. But we're going to have a life, and it's going to work out. That's how you do it. That's what grown-ups do. That's what people who don't mature can't love each other. They can't love anybody. That's what happens. Tons of the people today, the reason they can't have marriages is because they never grow up. They can't love anybody until everything is just what they need and just right with their thing, with the little hat, the thing. You understand? Until and the sticker, they can't have a husband or a wife. They're idiots because they're babies. That's why. The answer is what I'm just saying to you. So here, it doesn't kill us. That's right. We got problems. That's right. We Jews, we do. That's right. You got a kasha. And not everything, and no, I'm not teasing. Not that we don't care about a kasha, but the kasha is not always fatal. That's the point. Not every kasha, not every difficulty is fatal. We have problems. That's right, and and Baruch Hashem, we'll go forward.
Huh?
Yeah.
You have a kasha, you use varnish.
Varnish, that's right. Right. Okay, good. Okay, let's continue. Now, this is an enigma. It's a hard Gemara like this. We took it for granted that we were talking that these adjectives or these nouns were defining the animal, but we're not sure it's defining the animal. Is it defining the owner? We don't know what it is. In Hebrew, it works that way. How do you read this? Did an ox that is a deaf mute, that is an imbecile, or that is a young one, a minor, you're obligated? Or did it say what? The ox that belongs to a deaf mute, the ox that belongs to an imbecile, or the ox that belongs to a minor? We said it, but we didn't cover it. We didn't generate it yet. So this is my shor. What do you mean? What are you telling me when you said you're obligated? Elema, if you want to say what it means is shor shel cherish, it's the ox that belongs to a deaf mute, an incompetent. Shor shel shota, the ox that belongs to an incompetent imbecile. Shor shel kot, the ox that belongs to an incompetent, a minor. Then what's the inference? You're going to say what? That the ox belonging to a competent person, you don't have to pay for. Okay, does that make sense? That's a very strange thing. Rabbi Yehudi says no. It doesn't mean the ox belonging to shor shehu cherish. It really means an ox that itself is a deaf mute. Shor shehu shota, the shor which itself is imbecilic. Shor shehu shkotan, the shor which is itself it's not a din of a minor, but any ox that hasn't been taught to stay in the plow, you understand, the plow, it's wild. You can't. We expect an ox, you understand, to be protected. Though this ox is wild. You can't be protected. It's an incompetent ox. So therefore, those oxen what are all okay. So therefore, what? So therefore, these oxen he's obligated on. So Gemara says 1 second. He says make an inference, but these and no other, this and only this. Oh, shor shupikech butter, shupikech butter. You know, tell you what, an ox that's competent, you're exempt on. You don't have to pay for a competent ox that fell in. I'm Rav Yirmiyah, you know, says you're reading it wrong. Don't read it this and only this. Look at it as even this. Not only this, the incompetent, even an incompetent. Why? Lo mibaya. It's telling me what it goes without saying. No, is that what? That lo mibaya, okay, it's teaching lo mibaya. It's teaching it goes without saying. Lo mibaya, it goes without saying shor should be keich l'chayev. Certainly an ox which is competent, you're obligated to pay for it. There's no question about it, because the owner didn't do anything wrong by taking him outside. He says, but the ox that is deaf mute, the ox that is an imbecile, the ox that's too young to be controlled, to control itself. I'll say, you know what? You know why it fell in? Because it's you know why it fell in? Because it's a deaf mute. You know why it fell in? It's youth who caused it, and therefore what? And it caused it, and the owner was wrong to bring it out, and therefore the owner, the pit is not lift time. You should be exempt. Tell me what? Not only are you obligated for an ox that the owner had a right to take out in public, you're obligated even for an ox that the owner at first glance shouldn't have taken out. You're still obligated. Now, right now we're holding what? That's therefore an ox that fell in, whether it's competent or incompetent, you have to pay for it. That's what we're saying now. Amalei Rav Rabbeinu says, 1 second. He says, how can you say what you just told me? Tanya, didn't we learn nafal letocho bardas pater? If a sane or sentient, a sentient thing fell in, okay, a being fell in, and so Potter, he's exempt. If a sentient one fell in, you don't have to pay. My love, what do you mean? You don't have to pay for a sentient one? My love, Shor Bardas isn't talking about an intelligent, a competent ox. So you told me what? He told me what? That you do. You told me you do have to pay. You have to pay for an incompetent and a competent. We have to for a competent ox. You do have to. You don't have to pay. Amalei Lo said no. It doesn't mean that you don't have to pay for a competent ox. You do have to pay. It's talking about Adam. What was a sentient or a sentient intelligent thing? For a man, when a man falls in, you don't have to pay. Ayel Matam Bandas, who the 1 second. And then what? So then it's only for a competent man that he's exempt. But if the man is not competent, let's say the one that fell in is a deaf mute or an imbecile or a minor. Okay, pardon me. I'm sorry. No, he's only a competent person that he's exempt on. But one who's not competent, he's obligated. Okay, he's obligated, right? Okay, he says he's obligated for a non-competent person. It's not true. Didn't we learn shor v'lo adam? We said what, an ox and not a man, not any kind of man, even an incompetent. You're not obligated for. Elamai of bendasing. So how are we going to learn the word bendas? If a competent or intelligent person thing fell in, okay, that you're not obligated. Min bendas. It means the species that's intelligent. If the bendas, as opposed to an animal, like a dumb animal, but rather an intelligent, a sentient human being falls in, you're not obligated. Amar Lay says 1 second. He says still. Tanya, didn't we learn nafal atoko shor bendas? But didn't we learn anyway? You learned that if an ox that was competent fell in potter, he's exempt. You told me in a different price. You told me what that you're obligated whether it's an incompetent ox or a competent. But we learned clearly what a competent ox, you're out. Amar Rabbi says you have to learn this way. Shor, here's how this is the sum up, and it'll work out. Shor v'hu cherish. If you have an ox and it's a deaf mute. Shor v'hu shot, an ox that's an imbecile. Sharvu katan, an ox which is too young to control itself. Dafka, okay, those ones you're obligated on. Only ones that even though you might have thought that what if you don't have the right, you don't have the right to take it out, and you're obligated if they fall into the pit because they can't protect themselves from your pit. Avol, sure, but you have an ox that is competent, even though the owner had a right to bring it out. Potter, you're exempt. Why? Because that ox knows instinctively not to walk into a hole. If it walked in, it's like the ox's problem. It's not your problem. You don't have to worry about it. My time, what's the reason? The boile means the ox should look where it's going. But what it means is, of course, it means that we can, normal oxen do know not to walk into holes. Tanya Namiyachin, and we learned a rule like this. And this we've said this before. Nofel tochoshar cheresh shota b'katan of an ox that's a deaf mute, or an imbecile, or a minor, a suma, or an ox that's blind. Okay, mahalach b'lay, or alternatively, a completely competent ox, mahalach b'lay, that fell in at night, knows an incompetent that fell in the daytime, or even a competent one that fell in at night. Chayav, that you have to pay for. Okay, pikech malach b'yom, but a competent ox in the daytime. Okay, you're exempt. Okay, good. And that's our conclusion. Now I'm gonna just give a short introduction. We're gonna look at a whole bunch of laws that detail certain details that should limit the amount of animals that you're obligated. Maybe not all kinds, maybe not birds, maybe not this, etc. Every single one, we're gonna say, look, all of them are universal. All of them universal. We're gonna give a whole list of different laws, and even though it's detailed maybe an ox or a donkey, it's gonna be everything. It's gonna be everything. So how are we going to get, and then afterwards we're going to analyze how we know in all of these different sets of laws that all the animals are included. One of the ground zero for these things is Shabbos. In Shabbos, even though we're only going to learn it at the end, in Shabbos we're going to learn that the prohibition of working for Shabbos, all your animals, every kind of animal you have, all kinds of living things, you're not allowed to work them on Shabbos. Now, because of that, we have lots of what a Xer Shabbos. What's the Xer Shabbos? We call a word bridge. We have the two words. So tons of things will go back to Shabbos and learn from, just like by Shabbos, all animals work. By these things, all animals are also applied. But there's one unique one. What's that? Har Sinai. We learn by Har Sinai. Har Sinai also gives details, and it says the animals can't come up on the mountain. An animal that touches is going to die or get thrown down, get stoned or thrown down. You know what's going to happen there. So there we can't compare Har Sinai to other things. Har Sinai is unique. Hashem's giving the Ten Commandments up there. He's giving the Seres and Dibros. That's unique. Maybe it can't be. Maybe it's unique. Yeah, you can't make any comparison. So there we're going to see special. And now with that, you hold your hat on, okay, and we're going to do a lot of hard work to work out all these derivations that all of these things have all of the animals. Get ready. Mishnah, we said, it makes no difference whether it's an ox or it's any animal, okay? Any animal, okay? Okay, when it comes to falling to an ox, okay? If they fall there, you have to pay for everything. And even though the Torah said shor or chamor, it said an ox or a donkey, it's other animals also. Lafrashas Har Sinai, even though when it came to when Hashem said, listen, no animals allowed to go up to or touch the mountain, okay, when Hashem was giving the Torah, and it said, it said, behema, okay, a domesticated animal, or I said whether it's a domesticated animal or a man, it's not going to live, etc. He says it's not dafka. A domesticated animal, it also includes non-domesticated, also includes birds, and I know right here. I'm saying also right here. When by separating from Har Sinai, all the animals can't go on and they'll die, including birds. When it came to paying double for a person who stole something, we caught him with it. He has to pay double, even though it says when it comes to paying double, it says an ox or a donkey or a sheep. Okay, what about other living things? We also include other living things. You also have to pay double for those things, and also inanimate objects you have to pay for. When it came to return the laws of that, you obligate you to return a lost object, even though it gave a list of things. It says, don't see the ox of your friend or his sheep. Okay, or a sheep. Okay, you have to bring them back. We also include other animals that were lost. Like you have to bring them back. The freaka, we have an obligation to return when you see your animal, your friend's animal is falling down under the thing that it's carrying. You have an obligation to help him unload the animal. Okay, so it says when you see the donkey of your friend who's falling of your enemy, donkey of your enemy, the donkey of your enemy is falling down under his burden. Okay, so you have to go and help him. So it's all not just this donkey, all other animals also. It's the same thing. Not just that. Okay, you have to help them. Yeah, right. L'chasima. Also, when it comes to the prohibition of not muzzling an animal that's threshing, the animal's working with near food, you cannot let a muzzle the animal and stop it from eating. when you're working your animal. So it says don't muzzle the ox when it's threshing. Okay, but it's really also other things. You're not allowed to stop any other animals feeding when they're working. The kilayim, when it comes to mixed species, there are two types of mixed species. There's mixed species. You can't have two different species putting in the plow together to plow, and you cannot also interbreed two species. Both are prohibited from the Torah under the laws of not mixing the forbidden mixtures. Okay, so even though it says what, so when it says to interbreeding, it says your behema, your animal. It says your behema. You're not allowed to mix it. So also other, not just domesticated other animals, also you can interbreed. And also when it comes to plowing together, even though it says don't plow together with a donkey and an ox, it's any two species, not just donkey and ox. How do I know? Also, we're going to see later. Also, those things are all other animals are also included. You can't do it. Shabbos, when it comes to Shabbos, that you cannot work your animals. It says on the seventh day, it's Shabbos to Hashem. It says don't do any work. You and your son, your daughter, your slave, your maidservant. He says your ox and your donkey and all of your behemoths. Okay, they're all included. The same thing. What and it's not just animals. Also what? Also non-domesticated. Not just domesticated. Also non-domesticated. The oaf and also birds. And all the same rules going to apply. Im Kain, if that's true. If that's true, loma nemar shor or chamor. So the why, for example, in our case, does it say ox or donkey? If really in the end everything's included. Ultimately, those things are just the Torah talking. What's the normal case? It's the Torah's illustrating a certain law, so it shows the animals that would be normally associated with that case, but really all animals were included. Okay, get ready. Now we got to do the derivation. So Gemara says what? Let's talk about pit. How do we know that all animals, all the way down, everything's included? Because it says Kesef Yoshi Lebal. Remember, this was the last derivation that we used before we started the Mishnah. This is the one we accepted under protest. What? That since it said what you have to pay money back to the owner. Anything Lebal, see what we learn. What hold this Lebalim. Anything that's owned, any living creature that's owned, you have to pay for. Okay, Kedamran, like we said earlier. That's why I said to you. It looks like you see the Gemara seems to have accepted its last derivation. How do you know what? That every single animal can't touch top of the mountain. It said what? Whether it's an animal, domestic animal, or a man, it's not going to live. And anyway, we have a way to include non-domesticated with domesticated. But since it said behema, if an animal, if a man, which is extra, the Rabbah says that comes to include what? Also the birds. So I got everything in. The Tashlumi Kefil. How do I know that everything is included when it comes to if a person stole, you have to pay double if he gets caught? Like we learned after it's because we learned I'll call Davar Pesha after the whole thing. There's a summation. It says for any matter of iniquity. In other words, what do you mean? So that's what that's it. That's a generalization. Called over pshia, what anything that he did wrong, anything that he iniquitously stole, he has to. It's included everything, all the animals, etc. What about when it comes to returning a lost object? See, after it said the ox, the sheep, this that. How do I know everything? So it says what? It says what? Again, it's a super generalization for all the lost objects of your friend. Therefore, you have to include everything. The Lafrika, how do I know that I have to unload any animal? He says, Yoliv Chamor by Shabbos. So there, even though we haven't done it yet, I told you, like Shabbos is the grand central. Shabbos, we know, we're going to see it's everything down to the birds, everything. So they use a word bridge, Chamor, since it said Chamor, a donkey when it came to unloading, and it also said donkey when it came to Shabbos. So I can transfer the law of Shabbos, all living things, all the way over to what? All the way over to unloading. How do I know about the prohibition of muzzling an animal while it's working, not to let it eat? I'm forbidden to stop it from eating. Yolif, shor mi Shabbos. Again, I use a word bridge. Since Shabbos says an ox, and I know it's everything, all living thing. So if also what? By the muzzling, it said ox, so then I will use the word bridge. How do I know the rules of mixed species? If you're talking about the prohibition to plow with mixed species, Yolef Shor Shami Shabbos. Again, I can use, since it said ox goes back to a land bridge to Shabbos. Shabbos is all things, also all species here forbidden to plow together. If you're talking about what? Mixed species, what? You're not allowed to interbreed two animals. Where do I get that from? A different word bridge. The Yolef be Behem Techa, from domesticated animals, Behem Techa, again to Mishabbos. Again, I go back to Shabbos. Grand Central, I know everything.
How do they have mules?
Okay, hold on one second. Hold on, one second. I'll lose my thought. The Gabe Shabbos Minolan. Okay, now 1 second. Now you've been using Shabbos as the what's the Rosetta Stone? The Rosetta Stone, right? The Rosetta Shabbos has been your Rosetta Stone. Dude, how did you know there? You've been referred to it 20 times. Who told me? How did you know there? Okay, Regabe Shabbos Minolan. Where'd you know? The tiny because we learned. But Yossi Omer Mishomah Bishmael. They get a look. But Dibris Rishonos in the first version of the Ten Commandments. In that it says what it talks about the prohibition. It says your slave and your maidservant and your animal. But in the second ones it says what all of a sudden the details, your ox, your donkey, and all your animals. Wait a minute. When you said in the first Ten Commandments, every animal. Okay, so then why did you? Pardon me. And every animal. Pardon me. When you said Shar B'Chamar is already included what it says next in the pasuk Kol B'Mtecha. So why did you single them out? The Lamba Yatsu. So why did you single them out? Lamalachot to teach you. Ma Shar B'Chamar Hamarkan. Just like the donkey and the ox and the donkey that it says here by the prohibition of Shabbos, that also what? That also non-domesticated animals and birds are the same as we'll see. Of any case, at any place where it says shar and chamar, for example, like what by unloading and by muscling. To teach me also Chayabov. I Ema. 1 second. 1 second. How can you say what you're saying? Ema behema. The dibus. 1 second. Let me slow you down. The Hema dibus. You showed us. Let's say when it said behema in the first commandments, klal, that was a generalization. Shorcha b'chamorcha, when it's singled out in the second 10 commandments, your donkey and your ox and your donkey, the dibus achronos, the later the 10 prat, that's a detail. Kalu prat. What's the rule? If you have a generalization followed by a detail, what's the rule? What's the rule? What's the rule? Then you have to limit the rule to the detail. What? Only an ox or a donkey, okay, and midachrin alone, nothing else. So how can you learn? How can you generalize? Ami said, "No, don't worry about it." The chol b'mtecha, since like we saw before, the continuation of the pasuk in the second commandment, when it says that all your animals, achronos, okay, went back in a generalized general, particular, and general. What's the rule? You turn what you do is you turn the prod into an abstraction and you make a paradigm. Ma prot meforash, since the explicit details what Balichaim are living things. I've called Balichaim all living things. Now, 1 second, slow down. You generalize too generally. 1 second, you make too big a generalization. 1 second, you're right. You can abstract the detail, but don't abstract to the universe. You know what I'm saying? Just like here, just like they exist, everything exists. It's too big. Just because they're living, everything living, you make too big a. I can generalize anything to anything. Then everybody's everybody. I'm you. Everybody's everything. What are you gonna do? He says no. He says, Amos, slow down. Ma prop before limit your abstraction. Just like the detail that's explicit. It's a thing what with an availum is betama whether you touch it or whether you carry it without touching it, etc. Of kol only also other things. Also other things what. Only be animals, etc., but not birds. Okay, which don't matame anybody by touching and carrying, only by swallowing by kosher one. Okay, aval ofus. When it comes to birds, which are not matame that way, low they're out. I said no. You can't limit me that way. What in Cain, if it was really true that I had to limit the abstraction of the detail, the way you said, then only one would have been enough. You see, you'd have to have two details. Why'd you have to tell me also an ox and also a donkey? You told me one of them to teach me about living things, and the second one to tell me what living things that are not matame. So I needed both. The boy says, nah. 1 second. You think you got an extra word over here? You don't got an extra word. Come on. Which one would you have written by itself? He calls a Rachmana Shor. You written Shor alone. I mean, I would have limited too much, or said carved like his back in only things that what if you written ox only. I would say what you're only things that are sacrificial. Okay, but things that you can't put on the altar. Okay, things you can't put on the altar. No. Okay, therefore, how to write chamor? Somewhat even things that go on the altar because of Rachmana Chamor. And you written donkey. Have you thought what? Like we said before, only things that can become sanctified by being firstborn. Even a donkey can. Okay, those things, yes, that can become sanctified firstborn. But any kind of thing that can't become a firstborn can be sanctified. No, they're not included. You an ox. So therefore, what I needed all that before I ever got up to birds. So I don't have anything extra. He says, don't worry, get ready, watch out. He says, the whole behemtecha. It says, and all of your animals. Then it says in the end, the word call, all, forget about generalization, review. This is an amplification. This is an amplification. What is it? An amplification is an extender. It makes something wider. Okay, it's more inclusive. So he says, I include everything, all living things. Now, 1 second. Now the Gemara wants to challenge. 1 second. You want to tell me the word call is by definition an amplifier?
So
I'm gonna
the beginning of everything in
yeah,
the world.
yeah. I'm gonna prove to you that call is not an amplifier. No, call is not an amplifier. I'm gonna show you it's not true. We don't do it. I'm gonna show you we don't use call to amplify. You want to tell me what? To amplify, you can extend a prohibition or whatever it is with the word call. I have a hog gabi meiser. When it came to, you know what the rule meiser sheni, the meiser sheni, which you have to give only in certain years, you have to take it up. It's food. You have to take it up to Yerushalayim and eat it. You have to go enjoy it in Yerushalayim. What if it's hard to transport? So what do? Is you redeem it onto money. You carry the money up, but then you have to use the money to buy also all kinds of foodstuffs to enjoy in Yerushalayim. Now, when the Torah is talking about what you can buy with that money, so it says kol. Okay, it says ma'aser sheni. It says that when it's talking about what foodstuffs you can buy, it says kol. Okay, because there's shinan b'chlal prat, and we use and we make a drasha of what, of a general and a particular. Okay, and we don't amplify and say kol means everything. We limited. Okay, the Tanya. Let's see. I'll show you. I limited. I didn't use kol to amplify the Tanya because we learned when it says by ma'aser sheni in the Torah. It says when I'm going to have the pasuk in front of me. When a sata kesef, you should pay the money. You spend it on anything that your soul desires. Okay, whether it's cattle or sheep or wine or beer. And in anything, you know the word call, anything what that your soul asks you for, buy anything you like. And we say, how do we explain it? Spend the money on anything that your soul desires, general rule, buy anything you like. But so when the Torah started detailing it, about here, buy cattle, buy sheep, buy wine, buy beer, prat, that's a detail, okay? Okay, that's a detail. When it says again, and in everything that you soul asks you, to get a general, if it's a general, particular in general, you have to make what? You have to make an abstraction. You have to make an abstraction out of the detail. The explicit details, which is a whole bunch over here. What rule can I make that's a common quality? One, it's fruit that comes from fruit. For example, here, sheep and cattle come from other sheep and cattle. They come from other sheep and cattle. They come from other sheep and cattle. Okay. What would happen in Gan Eden? I don't want to talk about it. Okay. What would happen in Gan Eden? What would happen in Gan Eden? What would happen in Gan Eden? Maybe Adam Mechav had a court case. I'm just teasing. What would happen in Gan Eden? Okay, I'm just teasing. But anyway, okay. So they come from other. Yes, and they come from other animals. Okay. It could just mean potentially. But anyway, it could just be that. What? And also what? Also wine. Wine comes from grapes. Okay. Beer comes from dates by them. Okay. The geduli karka. So one, they're fruit from fruit. And also what? That geduli karka doesn't mean they grow from the ground. It means they're nourished by the ground. Yeah. They're right. They're sustained by the ground. They grow from, due to the ground, and that includes animals. Avkol premium piece. Therefore, the general rule is going to be what? You're going to generalize the what? That anything that's a fruit from a fruit, and anything that also is nourished from the ground, that's going to exclude things like mushrooms and whatever, all kinds of mushrooms and things like mushrooms, etc., and salt and water, those kind of things are not. Okay, Amri. Okay, so I got a thing. So I showed you. You notice we didn't say kol was an expander. We said kol was a general rule. So how you see we can't all of a sudden appeal to kol and say kol expands. So now you're stuck. Amri said no. You got to be more exact. Big kol klala. If it says big with all, that's a general, like we said over there. He said, okay, but over here, but kol. Okay, but when you say what, it just says kol, like by us, that's an amplifier. That's one answer. So mine's special. Alternative, like I say, kol nami klala. You know what? Even kol without a bit is also just a generalization and amplifier. Miu, high kol dacha, but nevertheless, it's still, this one's going to be special. Why? Because when it says in the Ten Commandments, kol over here by Shabbos, okay, I don't use it as the normal general in particular, ribuya. This one we're going to say is what? An amplification and not a cloud. Why? Ribuya. Why? Since it should have written and your animal, okay, Okay, so that we should write. Okay, so it could have written what? Okay, the could have written the same way that write the first commandments, but and it's instead of reading b'emtecha like it wrote in the first commandments, it write the chol b'emtecha. Here, write it. So here it sticks out like a sore thumb. Kol normally nothing special, but in this case, because it's by contrast, it's twice the 10 Commandments. By contrast, Hashem lit it up for us to make a drasha. Shmami no, here Hashem made it clear that I should deal with it especially as an amplification. Now, it says, once so now once you tell me the call and the second commandment is what it's coming to amplify, okay, we've shown us. So 1 second, then the word, your animals in the first 10 commandments, and the singling and the specifying of what? Of ox and donkey in the later ones, lamali, what I needed, all living things were already included from kol. Okay, kol b'emtecha. Okay. So I mean the Gemara says, don't worry. Each one is going to tell me what a special detail. What? Shor, like, because you're right. Shor over here, I don't need it, but I need it for a word bridge. Remember, I don't need it. You're right. Shor, I don't need by Shabbos. What do I need it for? So I need it like Mori. Shor lechasim. I need it to make the word bridge to what? To the word shor when it came to muzzling the animal. You can't muzzle all animals. Chamor. You're right. Chamor, I don't need here by Shabbos. But what do I need? Like Muri, but I need it as a word bridge extra. Chamor leprika, to compare it to the word donkey when it came to what? To unloading your friend's animal. They have to all animals. Bemtecha. Also, you're right. I don't need your animal. I don't need it here. Your behema in Shabbos, but lehagmuri. But I need it extra as what? Bemtecha leklam, to use as a word bridge. Xer Shabbat to what? To kilayim, to mixed species. Ayachi. If that's true, one second. He says, if you told me what? That from Shabbos I can learn when it comes to mixed species, let's say by plowing, that every living thing is included. I feel ultimately tosser that it should be forbidden to even put your slave and a cow to pull a plow. It should also be forbidden. Al-Matanan, how come we learned what? Adam mutar afakul echoshin shok. We learned that our Brisa told us that what? Pardon me, the Mishnah tells me that what? That you can put your slave with an animal to pull a plow. Rav Papa, he says, don't worry. Sapunoya, the time of the Haimos, he said, the people from Sapunya, the people from Papunya know how to answer this question. Who is that? Okay, Umano, who's the person from Papunya? Avacha Bar Yaakov. He was from Papunya. He knows the answer. Amar Kroy says, you're right. Really, what? Because of the way we learn, you should include what? In the prohibition of plowing, you should even include a slave. Okay, but Amar Kra, but the pasuk says, since the pasuk said, Leman Yanuach Abducha B'Mason, it's a long pasuk. Let me read the whole pasuk. The Yom HaShvi Shabbos Hashem, the seventh day Shabbos Hashem Elokecha, to the Lord your God. L'asasek Malacha, don't do any work. Atal Bincha, you and your son. Your daughter. Abducha, your slave. B'Mason, your slave girl. V'Sharcha, and your ox. V'Chamarcha, and your donkey. V'Chobem, all your animals. V'Gercha, your ger. V'Asher B'Shrecha is in your gates. So that your slave should rest, and your slave girl should rest, kamocha, like you. So you notice we compared the animals and the slaves. Okay, over here it's specific. When did the Torah compare over here a slave to the animal? Okay, Hashem says I compared the slave and the animal here by Shabbos to let them rest. Okay, but not for something else. And therefore I know that even though you wanted to bring it over, you from the word from the generalization you wanted to bring over to what that even you can't put a slave by Revia, but since the Torah limited, tell me what only here do I compare slaves and animals, over there I don't, and by Harisha you are indeed permitted to put a slave. We'll call that a dove.
Even the people in the even the guys.
I don't know such a thing.
Even the Papuni dogs. And that's how I took it.
I don't know.
Because they do that all the time with the Israelis.
I don't know.
Law, you know the right answer. I mean, that's how it seemed to me.
I don't know. Look at this. I haven't looked. I look at any question. Let's look around. Maybe somebody says something.
Or it could simply be that he was a puppy.
He knew. Yeah, he's the one who knew. Yeah, he's the one who knew. Yeah.